I think we're live. All right, let me double check. Ayo, kind of, maybe? I don't know. I'm going to assume we are live. All righty. Welcome to Mayday, a show about the show. I'm your host, 10-year Major League veteran, Trevor May, and I'm here to talk to you about a bunch of stuff because we got lots and 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 lots of things to talk about today, and I am very excited about it because we always do. We are 1 week past the trade deadline. Many stories have come to the head and become part of, how everyone's talking about the game. Though we are entering what is known as the dog days of summer. So welcome to August Major League Baseball. Between the deadline and the home stretch to make playoff pushes, we have this entire month where teams are just either trying to keep their head above water or start that push a little early and start to get some of the dividends paying off from some of those new adds or subtractions from their team. So today, great show for you. We're going to be getting into every single team and grading their trade deadline. I wanted to make sure that we got a week under our belt and we can see how those things are going. We're going to talk about some of the greatest nicknames ever in the history of Major League Baseball and doing a little bit of a tier list for that in the second hour. That should be a lot of fun. We should have lots of time to answer all your questions and make sure and just, make sure you guys are getting the information that you want to get. Okay? So let's get right into it. Even more on top of that, but I have one main story of the day, and I just want to talk about it because some very, very interesting information came over the weekend while I was flying from New York to Seattle, or from Seattle to New York to Seattle after doing Sunday Night Baseball. I got a great game, Phillies versus Detroit, the 2-0 win. Christopher Sanchez was elite, as he has been all year. That was a lot of fun. But there was a story that was released by The Athletic that got me thinking about our first topic of the day, team chemistry. What is it? Why is it important? And what do people mean when they say it? Because I feel like there comes a time, several times throughout each season, where there are articles analyzing team chemistry, why teams are, and it is blamed for teams that are really good on paper not being as good out on the field for any stretch of time. We then start to look into the clubhouse and whether or not we're letting the manager let the guys run around too much, which is one of the dumbest explanations I've ever heard because they don't have as much of an effect on that stuff as people think. But we talk about chemistry, and then we start to talk about how important it is and whether or not it's even real or not. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, in my experience, team chemistry is one of the most important things. It is everyone says it's 50% mental, the Yogi Berra quote about mentality and things. Team chemistry is the mental game of the team. You have your physical play, and then the way you guys operate together is the mental side of the game, and it's just as important, or even more important than how talented your team is. And so you got to pay attention to it, and there's certain things that every team with good chemistry has. Now, they all look different, but there's some buckets or categories that you want to look at when determining whether or not you have a chemistry problem or just a execution problem. So earlier this week, what prompted this idea was earlier this week there was an article released by beat writer for the Minnesota Twins. They're going to be part of this show a lot today. Dan Hayes, great guy, know him personally, does great work, and he reported on that trade deadline day and the chaos that was happening for the Twins. Now, and here's what it is. Twins Griffin Jack requested a trade and what I learned about the club's fire sale, part 1. So first things first, Griffin Jack's asking for a trade. People asking for trades in baseball is actually really rare because of the kind of, we don't have the control over our own careers until we're close to free agent to do this stuff. If you're becoming a free agent next year, that's probably the only time you'd ever have a real good chance of that even being listened to because they don't need to do anything. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not like football and basketball in that way. Griffin Jacks, though, allegedly asked for this trade on the last day of the season. And here's what went into that kind of story. Now, I didn't know exactly what had happened with Griffin until last night. And I can say with absolute certainty that I would have been just as mad or madder at the situation than he was. So Griffin Jax is asked to come in a game where they are getting beat and they are down by 7 runs, okay? In those situations, when you're the setup guy, one of the better starters or the better pitchers for your team, you don't anticipate going in that game because that's not your role usually. And sometimes you just have to go out and do your pitch on a night that maybe you wouldn't pitch in just to cover some other guys, okay? We are on the deadline day, so that's where this is interesting. They bring him in down 7. He immediately gives up 3 runs. It's fairly economical. I don't know exactly how many pitches he threw, but I believe it was in the low teens to those 3 hitters. So he's not being taxed, but it's very clear they were thinking about possibly trading him. Rocco Baldelli was stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit in decision-making because other guys in that bullpen, they were trading pretty much 5 of the 8 guys out there. So you're very limited in the guys that you could use, knowing that that was possibly going to happen, because if you get a guy hurt or he goes out and struggles or whatever, it hurts his trade value in real time. They want to avoid that. That seems stupid. You got to just play the game. We got to let upstairs be upstairs until the game's over. I think that's the way to handle this, but that's not how they handled it. So Griffin goes in the game, gives up 3 hits. There's a guy on first and third with no outs and a run is scored. It is now an 8-run lead for the other team. And what happens? Rocco comes out and pulls Griffin Jax, right? I don't want to use you. I'm not trying to tax you here. I'm pulling you out. The problem is there are 2 runners on base for a position player to come in the game. So he brings a position player in to face professional hitters with no outs, guys first, third. Guess what happens? He gives up a homer and cashes in 2 more runs for Griffin Jax, a guy who's already struggled with those crooked innings, and his ERA is ballooned, even though he's been really nasty this year. This is a problem for relievers, is avoiding getting your inherited runs cashed. It could really change the course of your season if you keep getting someone coming in behind you that gives up all your runs. And when it's a position player, it's almost guaranteed. So what he saw was like, I got to go in here. You're just going to throw me under the bus and be like, we'll just cash these 2 runs. Who cares? Who cares? He's a free agent after this year. Actually, I believe he has 1 more year. Either as a free agent or it's getting close. This is an important year for him, okay? If that happened, and I am a huge fan of Rocco Baldelli. He's one of my best managers I've ever had. I really like him, and I really like the Twins organization. But this situation was handled terribly. I got like viscerally, I was like, oh my God, you can't just do that. Like, I don't care what you guys are trying to do with trades. I don't care. You don't get to do that to me in my career and not give me an opportunity. Whatever. I give up the hits. Let me get a couple outs at least instead of facing 3 hitters. And then you just they all score. Just 3 extra runs, no outs on my ERA. I'll see you later. And that's what prompted the ask for a trade. And I don't blame him. I would have been livid because we're seeing what's happening with all the other trades. He's probably saw the writing on the wall with how the team's getting dismantled. So he's like, you know what? Screw this. That makes me so mad. That shows a complete lack of thinking about me in any of that way this affects me. And I am just a number on a page. And that makes me so mad. And then it made me mad. And I would have done the exact same thing. Now, I will push back on one thing. There's a common rumor going around that he went into the dugout and was like, I want to be traded. That is not how it worked. He went in, him and Rocco, got into it, did not go great. Then after the game, he called his agent and his agents did it. So just clarifying, that's what happened by, all accounts from the article from Dan Hayes that I read, okay? So that all happened. That is a great example of not great chemistry, not great communication, which is something the Minnesota Twins, in my opinion, and anecdotally from a lot of other players, are very good at, is communication from top to bottom, okay? They do a good job historically of communicating what they're doing and why to the people it affects. It's something that I've always appreciated about them, but they dropped the ball so hard on that one that I genuinely don't know what they were thinking, to the point where I think they were just like, we have to do this. And you don't. You don't. You can risk him throwing 10 more pitches. You don't have to do that. And it's not fair, and it's not great, a great signal that you care about Griffin. And he's been there for his whole career. So I did not like that. And then we saw the 11 guys get fire-sailed, and we are where we are. So what does this have to do with team chemistry? That is an example that I just wanted to touch on before we get into that part. It is an example of poorly executed communication that hurts team chemistry. Not only that pissed him off, that probably pissed a bunch of people off. But through the rest of this situation, there were some really great examples of communication. And that is one of the most important things you need when having good communication. Additionally, we have the Carlos Correa situation where he was in active communication with Derek Falvey in the front office that he was open to waiving his no trade if it's to Houston. They were clear on that, and it got done. He said, if you are going to tear down the team, I am willing to do this thing. And that made Derek Falvey's job a lot easier. There's no guessing, and you know that everyone's on the same page, and you know what the outcome will be if it happens. That is a great example of good communication. That is things that they do fairly well usually. Additionally, Joe Ryan was upset all day because he heard a rumor that he was going to the Red Sox. It did not coalesce, and he just thought, oh, if this is out there, I'm definitely getting traded. I'm definitely getting traded. Did he get traded? No, but he was worried about it and uncertain about it all day, and guess what happened? Derek Falvey said, hey, you're not getting traded. That trade never even really coalesced, and that rumor was based on very little. Like, we really didn't get very close. Maybe last 10 minutes of the deadline, we really tried a little bit, but like, we didn't get close, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. That happened too. So that's another great example of a well-held. They just dropped the ball on Griffin Jax, and that makes me mad still. I'm still mad about it. I hate thinking about it. So 2 of the 3 situations are, if you're gonna have to do this, that is the way that players would like it to be done. If you have to get rid of me, talk to me about it, and explain it to me. And if I disagree, at least you explain it to me. You just said, go on, and we don't have to deal with you anymore, which is what most of the time happens. So the Minnesota Twins historically have had very, very good team chemistry, and they played up to, people enjoy playing there because they feel like they can go talk to Derek Falvey. They feel like they can walk into Rocco Baldelli's office and explain what they want or what they need. And they feel like they can talk to Pete Mackey, the pitching coach, when they want to make a change, try something, or do something. That is the way they operate, and I noticed it when I was there, and I always enjoyed it. And I'm very disappointed that one of those 3 guys got treated the way that he was. So let's talk a little bit about what goes into team chemistry. And it's basically just, how does your team work together, and how do you mesh, and how do you make decisions? And there's a bunch of things that go into that, which we'll get into just a moment. But you basically, you get really good at intuitively establishing goals that your team wants to do, and then everyone figures out their role in how to get to that goal. That seems very simple, but when you have lots of young guys, when you have inexperienced guys, or you have guys that are kind of up and down and really worried about keeping their job, sometimes it's really hard to guess what those things are when you don't have the experience. So the onus then goes on the team that you're on to tell you and be like, this is what our expectations are. And if you exceed those expectations, that's a big thumbs up. But if you do your job, your chance of staying on this team are really good, and we will be a better team and long term, and you will have a better career because you're able to identify those things and do them. I have the Dodgers here. They're notorious for being good at this, being very clear, open, and honest, and communicative about what they want, what they see you doing, why they think you're valuable, and then what you are going to be called to do. So that is what team chemistry is, just on the field. And then on the backside, the players have to enjoy being in the same room together. And that's not true everywhere. You know, you're going to run into guys who just suck. Sometimes you're going to be in clubhouses where you really just try to ignore somebody, or when they walk in a room, you find yourself wanting to leave that room. Of course, that's going to happen. It's dozens of people in and out all the time. There's going to run into people you don't like. And of course, I had a bunch of those. Not a ton. It was like maybe a couple on the worst teams, and most teams were great, but it does happen. And if your team all likes each other, that is something that is really helpful. And how do you do that? You just kind of lean into the things that you have fun. So why is team chemistry so important? What does it do for you? So it is, the game is fueled by emotion and adrenaline, okay? When you are emotionally driven and adrenaline driven, you play every day, you're tired, you're physically tired, you have to work through being tired all the time. And adrenaline and emotion are the best ways to do that, whether or not it seems bottled up or whatever, it is super important, okay? Now, if you are operating in that space, you gotta feel comfortable and safe to do it. Like if you're out there like, I can't, if I can't get too emotional or I can't have too much adrenaline or I can't do certain things, if that's just a general feeling because you're new, you're young, you don't know what you're doing, you don't think you belong there, nobody acknowledges you, whatever it is, if you don't have that, it's really hard to go down and reach for those things. So teams that are good, everyone on their team feels like they can be themselves or a version of themselves that makes them successful on a baseball field. That's important for chemistry. That is done by some of the categories we're going to talk about in a second. And secondly, focus. You got to be able to focus, and it comes down to being comfortable again. If you're worried about other things, you can't focus on the things that matter. Heard that before? Yeah, that's called life. So you need those two things, and the best teams foster those two things. They say, hey, man, go do what you got to do. We got your back. Like, if that's the way you're going to operate, you're going to get the best version of those guys because they're not worried about anything but baseball. And that's what you want to get. That's what you want to foster. Sounds very simple. Sounds very easy. But some people have things going on at home. Like, even when there's stuff going on outside of the field that the team may not know about, the least that you can do is have the clubhouse feel like a place that they belong. Because if you don't feel like you belong in either place, that's when things get hairy. I know that from experience from time to time in my career. So let's talk a little bit about the things that all teams with good chemistry have, okay? And I found a great article from a website that I actually never seen before, but I agreed with the way it was broken up, so I'm gonna reference it here. This is the focus, by the way. You gotta focus your hand and off. Congratulations, USA Women's Track Team. You guys are really good. But this article by Amy Watkins was on a website called newarena.com. I believe it's just a blog. It was written on July 16th last month. Inside the Clubhouse, what makes team culture great, or AKA chemistry. So I just want to give her a shout out. And the way that this was broken down, I thought was a great way to do it. So, number one, you need leadership. You need a veteran in a clubhouse that you can defer to when you don't know the answer to stuff. There has to be guys in a clubhouse that if you're like, hey man, where am I supposed to be for this thing? What time should it be? Like, how does this guy operate? How do I pitch to this guy? Whatever. There has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in a clubhouse where there's certain groups of people in that clubhouse that feel comfortable going to them and talking to them and deferring to them when things get hairy. When the team's not doing well or the team's doing good, you have the center of your flying V moving you towards your goals. So, Tom Brady. Say what you want about Tom Brady. The guy led, for sure. So, that's number one. Leaders are important. A great example was in 2022. We had Max Scherzer with the pitchers and Francisco Lindor with the hitters, and that was just, at least as the regular season went. And of course, we didn't get the job done in the playoffs. But the reason we were so consistently good in the playoffs is because we had those two guys that we trusted to lead us in the correct direction. If any of us hadn't had any experience, those two guys have had pretty much all the experiences. And we deferred to them, and it works. And they, by all accounts, still are doing that on the teams they are on right now. Number two, open communication and dialogue. So we got the Spurs here. They had that amazing run. And anecdotally, we know that Popovich is a great coach, but we also know that all of these guys had their own input into how they should win games and what they can do. Everyone was always on the same page, both off the field and on the field. And that is not as common in baseball as you think. There are teams where you're looking around, you're like, I've never seen my owner before. I don't know what he wants. Or I've never seen my GM. I've never spoken to my president of baseball operations. If you don't ever talk to them, you're just guessing at that point. You're guessing what they want. And if you're guessing what they want all the time, it's really hard to guess right. And so communication, treating people like adults and just saying, hey, this is what we expect. And then if you choose to get rid of them, trade them, release them, whatever, you can say, You knew we had the expectations. Those expectations were not met. Unfortunately, this is what we have to do, and it softens the blow. It's understandable across the board. You might still be angry. You might not agree, but at least you knew going in. And there's so many moving pieces. This is one of the biggest things that teams struggle with is how do we do this effectively? And believe it or not everyone's very personable. Not everyone's very, very good at communicating these things, and they're not comfortable doing it. And when that happens, the team chemistry suffers. Number 3, you need to have an identity. Now, I mean, I know this is a little bit of a gimmick, but they had an identity. Look at this smile. That's a happy dude. That's a guy who loves where he is. These guys are genuinely having a blast. That's what it takes. You have to have a team identity, and that comes down to, this is our goal. This is how we win games. We hit homers. We steal bases. We do this thing. We do that thing. And then the players buy into it. That's good coaching. That takes good executives. And that's one thing that I like. I think the Mets are moving in the right direction, is I think they are getting that expectation and that communication and that identity as a group. This is how we win baseball games and will into the future. It's becoming year after year, not just year and then changes the next year. Like we're searching. We actually found something that works. And teams like the Astros that went to the ALCS 7 years in a row, they had an identity to where when a new guy joined the team, he fit right into that identity and he got it right away. And sometimes that's done through fun stuff like this. It's done through like having group outings or going and doing things or whatever. Like everyone latches onto a song, a win song, all that stuff factors in. If you have good stuff that everyone likes and it participates in, that is great team identity together, okay? Last 2, inclusion. This kind of is attached to the leadership side, but it's very important that the rookie feels that he is valuable to a team, and that is communicated to him through a guy who is a veteran. When a rookie walks into a clubhouse and has anticipated that moment for his entire life, getting to the major leagues, and feels like, I can't say anything, that guy might not be very good right away. So that's what's changed a lot in baseball. Now, there is some nice razzing hazing that is part of that inclusion. Like literally messing with them is what brings them into the group. That is a very dude thing to do. That still exists. I want to be clear. We're not like, hey man, you're part of the team. We love you. Like it's not like that. It's like a, sup idiot, welcome. Don't mess this up. But in reality, it's like, you got this, right? It's like there's a fine line and some guys are good at it, some guys aren't. But that is the way it is. You got to bring them in as quickly as you can so that when they go out in the field, they don't feel like they're an imposter, because imposter syndrome in professional sports is freaking everywhere. And so that is what I mean by inclusion. Additionally, when the predominantly English speakers and the Spanish speakers like each other, have fun, and there's a lot of, it's a combined group, because as you can imagine, those groups separate a little bit because one group wants to speak Spanish and speak fast and say everything they want and like mess around with the jokes from where they're from, whatever, and they kind of click. And of course they click out a little bit. But if it's not like a we don't like each other situation, we like each other, we just are more comfortable being where we can communicate clearly most of the time, and then we come together and have a lot of fun. Like that is, again, bringing people into your culture a little bit. That you don't have to be like, you are one of us now, but a little bit of overlapping of cultures is also a great indicator, and is included in there. And then the last piece that you need in order to make this whole thing work, you got to have some gosh darn fun. You got to tape up Pedro Martinez, right? You got to, again, this all comes down to comfort. This is a great example. When teams are having fun, all of those other boxes have been checked. Right? So you're gonna read articles. You're gonna read, are the coaches like letting them run wild in the clubhouse? That's the coaches, that's not their jurisdiction. The clubhouse is for the players. It's up to them to do that. And it's leadership that needs this to happen. If coaches try to make it happen, it does not work. It does not work. It does not work. I've been on teams where the manager would constantly choose the music and we hated it. It drove us crazy. We're like, stop changing the music. You're not a player, right? Like, we love you, but God damn it. Get out of here, right? Get out. So that isn't real. And then you're going to hear that a lot. No one likes that. Like, managers, it's very hard to do that because in reality, they're going to have to make hard decisions that are not the decision that you'd make as a player at some point. They will. They're going to have to. There has to be a level of separation. And the guys that are good enough in saying, hey, I'm going to come in here and yell at you if you need fire lit. You guys are being stupid for a while. But I'm not going to make a habit out of it. I'm not going to hang out in here all day with you all the time because this is your place and I am your dad in a lot of ways. So at the end of the day, team chemistry, it is very important. It is one of the most important things. And it can be fostered very easily by some guys who carry some weight in that clubhouse. The Joe Mauers, the Torrey Hunters, the Max Scherzers, Francisco Lindors of the world, taking initiative and saying, this is how I have fun. What do you guys got? So that everyone's out there trying to do it. That's the key, and that's where it starts. It starts with the guys who've been around. Just like when Bryce Harper got in Rob Manfred's face and everyone's like, dude, you make tons of money. Why are you complaining? He's not. What he's doing is leading and speaking up on behalf of the guys that don't feel comfortable doing it. That is what he's doing. And that is the example of what leadership looks like in baseball and how you build great team chemistry. So let me know what you guys think in the chat, in the comments, everywhere, because I hope this clears it up. I hope this is a good point of reference if you were wondering, does my team have good chemistry or not? Because if you can point out the guys that do some of these things well, maybe that's not the issue. Maybe it's just we got to focus a little bit more on the field. All righty, here we go. Let's do some housekeeping before we move into the news, which there are a couple breaking news. Also, very quickly, before we actually do that, I'm going to do this real quick. Where did I put it? Cleveland Guardians pitcher Gavin Williams had a no-hitter go through 8 innings before giving up a home run to, yeah, you guessed it, the almost $1 billion man, Juan Soto. Great pitching performance, but Juan Soto is the guy that you do not want to face and give up that final home run. So Gavin was this close, but no cigar. Better luck next time. All right, let's get into some housekeeping really quick. 1, we have a second channel now. It is @MoreMayday on YouTube. It's going to have additional little lighter edited videos, some of the fun stuff that we do in the Internet Says and stuff. So if you miss the shows and you don't want to watch the 2-hour entire video, you can go over there, check and see what we got. And then I might actually do some, it's going to be where I test a lot of ideas for series and things for short form and stuff too. So if you like Mayday and you like what we do here on Trevor May Baseball in Foul Territory, More Mayday will also have content from time to time. So enjoy that. Also, everything else quit. So we're going to move on. We have a Substack, and that Substack, I'm just going to do this. We also have a Substack, IamTrevorMay.com. Go check that out now. We have special articles. Producer DK has been writing great things each week. We did some reactions to the trade deadline, so that's awesome. It's always going to be free unless you would like to subscribe with your wallet. I do appreciate that. I'm working on getting all the YouTube videos being released out a little bit earlier for the people on Substack. And if you are a paid subscriber over on the Substack, you get a direct DM line to me where I'm going to aggregate. I would prefer you ask questions, please. If you ask me questions, things that you want to know, I will see it. I will reply to you, and it may just make it into a brand new series of Q&A videos from the people that support the channel. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all of your help. And also we got some new merch over at mayday.show. You should go check that stuff out as well. Okay, let's get into the news. Actually, we have a little bit more breaking news to get into. 21-year-old phenom Roman Anthony of the Boston Red Sox has been a revelation this year, and since June 9th, he's hitting .283, 400 and 428 with a triple slash, with 2 home runs and 19 RBIs in 46 games. He signed an 8-year, $130 million contract with an option for a 9th with escalators that could take it up to $230 million, very similar to the Julio Rodriguez deal. I think this is a great pickup for the Red Sox, signing one of their young guys to a controllable contract that then but gets him a lot of his value early. If you guys are going to sell or sign these team-friendly deals, heavily incentivize them and get them long-term past your free agency. Get the 8-9 years now if you can. Don't sign a team-friendly like Christopher Sanchez, who's signed a 4-year, $22 million deal. He is worth so much more than that. Hell, he's worth that this year. More than this year. So, congratulations, Roman Anthony. Thank you for setting the table for other guys like you in the future. That's pretty dang cool. All right. Now let's get into the news. I don't know why it skipped like 4 slides all at once. That actually drives me nuts. Actually, I'm kind of worried about what's after this. I tested this and it's weird. Anyway, we don't need to hear that. Let's get into the news. All right. We have something just broke. Something just broke. So I'm going to fix that really quick, and you are going to get a word from Foul Territory guys about Arena Club. Check it out.
AJ, I'm on my phone right now in Arena Club, and I'm looking at the Emerald slab packs, and I see in the Grail a Bobby Witt Jr. 2020 Bowman Chrome Prospect Auto Gold Refractor card.
Give me that. Give me your phone. I'm gonna get you to
you gotta
transfer that to me.
I don't have it.
I thought you had it.
Get a slab pack. No, I don't have that.
Then give me your slab pack.
That card's worth
You buy
a lot.
me slab pack, Scott, so I can get the Bobby Witt Jr. Gold Refractor 2020 Bowman Chrome Auto, because that sounds awesome.
And it's worth a lot.
It's worth a lot. He's a stud. He's not going down. Get a Grail. Get a Grail. I want a Grail, Scott. Give me the Holy Grail. You do it.
To do that, you must get yourself a slab pack in Arena Club. Or if you want to get it for a friend, you can do that too. And right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase. If you're going on there and you're just like, hey, I want a specific card. I find it there. I want to grab it for my showroom. arenaclub.com/foul and use the code FOUL.
Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL at checkout. That is arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL to get 20% off your first slab pack. God, breaking packs is so fun. Anyway, now it's time for the news. Shay Langeliers. A's catcher Shay Langeliers just made baseball history, and he became the 4th catcher in Major League history to have 2 3-homer games after belting 3 in a 16-7 rout of the Washington Nationals. His first one off of Mackenzie Gore, which is no easy task, and then he hit one off of Orlando Ribalta and Andre Lara. He joined Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, and Travis D'Arnaud. That's 3 pretty good catchers, as the only catchers to have 2 career 3-homer games, but he also did it in the leadoff spot for the first time. So he led off the game with a home run, and then he hit 2 later, becoming the first catcher in the history of baseball to hit 3 home runs while leading off in the major leagues. Congratulations, Shay. That is why we call him Shay Langeliers. Nice. Oh, wow. Speaking of home runs, Lourdes Gurriel hit a 103.9 mile-per-hour pitch from brand new San Diego Padres setup man, Mason Miller, over the left field fences for the only home run hit off any pitch over 103. That is, I was actually a little bit speechless. In the at-bat, he threw a 101.7, 103.6, an 89.6 mile slider, and then a 104.1 fastball. He also hit 104.2 later in that outing. He's throwing over 104, and he gave up a home run at 104. That is incredible. Congratulations, Lourdes Gurriel, though, on doing that. That's incredible. And it turns out that the Padres ended up winning the game anyway, so no harm, no foul, I guess. Moving on, Garrett Crochet leads the Red Sox to their 7th straight win and his 8th straight win. 8th straight winning decision in his last 8 starts. He is now 13-4. He struck out 8 to win his 9th consecutive decision. And Trevor Story has been raking this year, I think quietly, and no one's really talking about that. In his last 7 games, he's hitting .480 with a 1.552 OPS. That's crazy. With 3 homers, 4 doubles, and 11 RBIs. The Red Sox are now 13 games above 500 and securely in second place in the AL East, coming up quickly on those Toronto Blue Jays. So it looks like my predictions are coming true and coming true very, very quickly. Unfortunately, their rivals, things have not been going as well. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The Yankees lose their 5th straight in a heartbreaking fashion. And a lot has been going wrong. We're going to talk a little bit about it. There's 5 big moments that have demonstrated their struggles. Now, as you can remember, in the trade deadline, they added, I don't know, the entire bullpen is new. And yikes so far. Yikes. So, first up, we had Jake Bird coming in, throwing a sinker down and away. Grand slam to Kyle Stowers in Miami as the team, if you didn't know, the New York Yankees got swept in Miami for the first time in their history, which is absolutely incredible. But in this game, they're still leading this game. The Yankees end up losing it, unfortunately. Later, we have Jose Caballero with Camilo Duvall, another guy on the mound that they got at the trade deadline, gives up this ground ball to Xavier Everett. He comes up and just whiffs it, and both guys on base, because they're on first and second, they score easy. The game is tied, and Xavier Edwards can freaking fly. They're lucky that was not in the park home run. Tying the game 12-12. Not a great look for the Yankees. And things didn't stop there. We got Jazz Chisholm watching a very obvious pop-up in the infield. Standing there, he watches it. Why is he not getting back to first? Then he didn't get back to first, and then later defended that play, saying that's exactly what he was supposed to do. It wasn't. And we get another look here. We see it on the side. He stands there. Right now, I think he's assuming it's going to be an infield fly. And what he really doesn't want to do is let him drop it or whatever. So I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what he was assuming, but he obviously thought something else was going on with the play, that it wasn't happening. But that also wasn't said in his postgame comments, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Then, in the next series, we see Jake Bird again giving up a 3-run home run to Josh Jung in extra innings, and they lose that game again, too. They are currently on a 5-game losing streak, one lower than their season high, and things are not great in the Bronx at the moment. And then the next night, actually, not the next night, because we haven't even seen Devin Williams, who has blown 2 saves in the same series. Then the next night, with a chance to come back and get back in the game, we have Giancarlo Stanton struggling to not get in a double play. That was his full speed running. He cannot run, and it looks real bad when a guy can hit the ball that hard but not run at all. And that inevitably ended the series as well after a couple tough outings from Devin Williams, who said, there was just one pitch, one mistake that got me, and people latched onto that comment and were furious. Now, a little context here, guys. When we say there's just one pitch that got me, that is an attempt for a player to try to hold on some of the confidence that they have been losing because things have not going their way. Because as a reliever, it often is just 1 or 2 moments that kill you. If that's a pop-up, then you're good and you're out. If that's a strikeout, then you're good and you're out of it, right? Or it's a home run and it looks like the world is... There is no it's pretty good. There is awful or there is good enough. Like, those are your 2 options as a reliever. And so in order to give yourself an opportunity to be better the next night, you have to compartmentalize these moments and not think every time I throw the ball, everything goes wrong. That will kill you. So that's why they say things like this. But fans hate it, because what fans want is you to flip a table in front of the camera and say, I'm so mad, I'm so angry, just like you are. And I understand that, but players can only you got to pick and choose your spots. If you do that, it will show up on the field. You will continue to do the thing wrong. You will stop believing that things are going to go your way. You will start to believe that they are going to automatically go the other team's way. And when that happens, you just don't play as well. So I know it's hard to hear, but that is where it's coming from, and they're trying. Now, the Jazz stuff, no clue what happened there. I don't know how you can rationalize that was a strategically good at all. You should have just got back. I when in doubt, just get back. It didn't make any sense. There was no value being off the base there. So now that that's covered, the Yankees really struggled. They've lost 19 of the last 24 on the road, and they are in serious trouble right now of falling even farther in their division, which they do not want. They do not want. All right, last couple pieces of news here. We have Milwaukee Brewers, on the flip side, are very good. They just completed their best 60-game stretch in the history of the organization, going 44-16. That's incredible. They just won 7-2 over the Braves again. On the road, they are 33-24, good for the best road record of any team, and they have the best winning percentage of any team in the league right now. They've made some key moves, which is interesting because we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But one of them was Andrew Vaughn, who has been absolutely ridiculous since June 13th. He's an 11-game hitting streak. He's hitting .429 with 4 homers and 14 RBIs during the hitting streak. He's hitting .370 since joining the Brewers. It's crazy. Pat Murphy, the pancake man himself, said they're hungry. They play hard. We try to create whatever we can create. I feel like we're always hanging on a cliff. You know what I mean? Risk isn't a word we worry about. We're not trying to play it safe. We just go for it, and I think they have all kind of bought in. Well done, Pat Murphy. Well done. And the Brewers are the real deal again, and they continue to be an enigma. And lastly, the Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field finally gets an All-Star game for the first time since 1990. That is 35 years. It was commonly known that the reason they weren't getting it is because it's in a neighborhood. They're like, if you want to do the festival thing, you want to have like the street fair and all the stuff, you need space to do it, and they simply didn't have it. Now, some new city ordinances in Chicago have widened up some of that space, widened the sidewalks, made it much more pedestrian friendly immediately around the park, which allows them to work with it a lot more with the All-Star festivities. So in 2027, the All-Star game will be in Chicago. And I think that's great. I think it's a great idea. Anywho, before we get into our main story and we start talking about rating some trades, I want you to watch this ad.
Kratz, there are a lot of people out there that pay rent and they don't get anything for it.
Might as well change that. You can get some rewards for flights, hotels, tons of stuff.
With Built, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards airlines, hotels, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and much more. It doesn't stop there. Built is about making your entire neighborhood more rewarding. You can dine out at your favorite local restaurants and enjoy experiences just for Built members every month. They're turning a monthly expense into an opportunity to earn rewards and discover the best that your neighborhood has to offer. Your rent is finally working for you. Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, wherever you call home, by going to joinbuilt.com/foul. That's joinbilt.com/FOUL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/foul. Go for it.
Earn points on rent and around your neighborhood, wherever you call home, by going to joinbuilt.com/foul. That is joinbuilt, joinbilt.com/FOUL. Now, let's get into our main story of the day, the trade deadline. What did the teams do, and how do I think they did? Well, a couple caveats for how we're going to do this rating, because about 1,000 players traded hands, most of which nobody knows much about because a lot of them have no track record in professional baseball anyways, but there's a lot of prospects. In order to do research enough, me and my two producers, there's going to be a lot. So how we're going to look at this is, how much better did your team get this year in order to make a playoff push? How much better did the big league team get? So I tried to factor in some caveats, like when we know that a prospect is good, or there's guys that are just there and going to have an effect right away, but maybe not this year. I give them a little bit of credit. So keep that in mind when I do these ratings, okay? I wanted to focus very heavily on, is this team better now in the big leagues? Is their chances of making the playoffs higher, not only making the playoffs, making a run, higher than it was before they made the trades? We're going to focus really heavily on that, and then maybe this time next year, we can do a check-in on the prospects and where they're at, how those things are paying out too. We will do that. We just need to see that kind of start to shake out a little bit more before we know the answers to those questions. And I'm not going to predict that stuff because I don't know how and it's too much work. Okay? So, in this context, a C is, they're the same they were. Below that is worse. Above that is better. Let's get into it, starting with the AL East. Number 1, Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm going to rattle these names off. So get ready. Shane Bieber, Brandon Valenzuela. God, this is going to be fun. Sir Anthony Dominguez for Cal Steven, Will Wagner, and Jerron Watts-Brown. The real pickup here is Shane Bieber, and I think that his ceiling is very high, and he could be a big part of this, but we don't know yet until he gets there. So I give them a B+. Why do I give them a B+? Honestly, because I think this number is a little bit different. I am really high on Shane Bieber, and I think they did what they needed to do. So, though they didn't do a lot, they did some. All right, moving on. We got the New York Yankees. Lots of movement. Now, we know how they've been playing lately, but again, small sample size. They got David Bednar, Ryan McMahon, Camilo Bodoval, Jose Caballero, Wilberson De Pena, Jake Bird, and Ahmed Rosario. Jake Bird has now been sent down to the minor leagues. For Rafael Flores, Edwin Perez, Brian Sanchez, there's a lot. Josh Groban, that's not what that says. There is a lot. There is a lot. Jesus Rodriguez, Parks Harbor, that's a great name. Carlos De La Rosa, Everson Pire, Oswaldo Peraza, Rock Reggio, Ben Shields, Carlos Carrasco, Clayton Beater, and Brown Martinez. That's a lot. That's a lot of players, but we're focused on what they got for the big leagues, and what they got for the big leagues makes them much better. Now, I know it hasn't worked out yet. I know it hasn't. But I also said when these guys were traded that there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve because they're coming from Colorado and from Pittsburgh. They've never played in any, and San Francisco, honestly. Like, even Camilo Doval hasn't really pitched in the playoffs, like in that market like that. So the guys they got are not used to pitching for the Yankees. There is a learning curve there, though I do believe that they have the ability to make that adjustment, and of course it's going to take a little time, and it just looks so bad because Yankees fans and everyone's freaking out about the Yankees, and they are playing very bad, and I totally get it, but I think these guys, I think that on paper, they got everyone they could have possibly gotten that was available to make them better. They did all the moves. Now, if those moves don't work out, you have to do the moves first, and I give them an A on the moves, okay? Red Sox, they added Dustin May and Steven Matz, and they lost James Tibbs, Zach Earhart, and Blaze Jordan. Blaze is a sick name, I gotta be honest. Dustin May, Steven Matz. Steven Matz has been up and out of the pen. Dustin May was kind of the odd man out of the rotation. They really needed a front-end starter. They did not get a front-end starter. And so I don't think they got any better. And I'm adding, this is probably a C. I think they're a C, but I'm going to give them a D because of the disappointment, because of the nature of their team, the resources they have, and the things they should be able to get done, and where they are positioned as well. There was a D. But that said, they didn't make their team better, but their team was already really good, and we're seeing that right now. They're playing great. So maybe this doesn't matter, and there's a chance that these ratings don't matter. So just keep that in mind. But there was one glaring thing: front end starter, middle starter. We really want that, and they just didn't do it. And that, if they didn't say that and didn't do it, see, if they did nothing, they would have gotten a C. And just by doing what they did and missing the things they need to do, it takes them down a little bit. All right, Tampa Bay Rays doing a bunch of lateral moves. They got Griffin Jax, Fiducia, Van Bell, Everson Pirari, Adrian Hauser, Nick Fortes, and Yadier Arenamo. I need to stop trying to say these. Then they sent James Tibbs. Okay, I messed something up. One of these two teams have these three guys, so I might have messed that up. I apologize. But we're not focused on the leaving. We're focused on the adding anyways. This is awkward. I'm so sorry. Griffin Jax, huge pickup. Huge pickup, and I believe they have another year on him. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get him to start. I also like Nick Fortes as a backup catcher. They're very good at, he's a good catcher. Doesn't really hit much, but can hit, and Adrian Hauser won't make him better. So I think they might be a little bit better because they didn't lose a lot. B-. Moving on, Baltimore Orioles. I'll let you read those. Those are almost all prospects with the exception of Dietrich Enns, who is a big league player, and they lost Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, Cedric Mullins, Charlie Morton, Andrew Kittredge, Ramon Urias, Seranthony Minguez, and Gregory Soto. We are talking a lot about the Twins. These guys got rid of 9 players in the big leagues. 9 guys left for a lot of prospects. Now, if we're talking just prospects, could be good. Is it good for right now and playing better now, though? Absolutely not. Their team literally lost just 9 big league players. You have to get an F trade deadline in terms of getting better this year. They're not getting better this year, but in their defense, that wasn't the goal. Still an F. Still an F. You just weren't taking the same test as everybody else. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's move on to the Central. Detroit Tigers, first place in the Central. They added Charlie Morton, threw great on Sunday. Watched it. Kyle Finnegan, a solid bullpen piece. Paul Sewald has been a solid bullpen piece. There's Cody Hauer in here, Rafael Montero, who's been hurt, Chris Paddock, who also threw well, and Twins legend Randy Dobnak, and they sent out a bunch of prospects. Do I think the Detroit Tigers got a little bit better? Sure, I do. And especially with how Charlie Morton and Chris Paddock threw in their first starts, I think they did a good job. So it's panned out a little bit. They needed depth. They went and got depth pieces. They added some guys who have a history of some swing and miss in the bullpen, which is something they've struggled with this year. So I do like some of these moves, even though some of them are just, they're a little bit underwhelming in general. So they got a little bit better. I think they did a good job with depth pieces, but it's remained to be seen. If you really want Chris Paddock and Charlie Morton to go carry you, they're probably not going to. But I will say, I did make this rating before I watched Charlie Morton throw as well as he did on Sunday. So bravo, hats off to you. Moving on. Cleveland Guardians, they added Kyle Steven and Paul Sewald. No, Paul Sewald left. So they lost Paul Sewald and Shane Bieber. They only got Kyle Steven. So that should go down. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Some of this stuff, I did all this last night, so bear with me here. They lost Sewald and Bieber, and they got Stephan. They get a little bit of a boost from getting something for Bieber before he even pitched, but he never pitched for their team, and Paul Sherwold was also hurt for most times. So they got a little bit worse. And the big thing with the Colossae thing, which isn't their fault, really hurt their ability to do the trade deadline, because I think they would have had a great trade deadline had they been able to get rid of him. But they obviously can't, and now his locker has nothing in it, which is concerning. But we talked about it last week. I'm not going to get into that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Royals. They added Yastrzemski, Burgett, Kolek, Falter, Grichuk, and Adam Frazier. That's a lot of veteran presence. Again, very Detroit-esque, a little bit better. But I was surprised that they got better in this way. They also extended Seth Lugo, that I'm going to add in here and I think is better. And they lost Freddie Fermin, who I think that hurts a little bit. But they did a really good job of swapping spots that they had depth in with spots they didn't. And some veteran guys that if they make a little run, if they sneak into the playoffs, they'll feel comfortable having that. It was good lateral moves. They made themselves slightly better, in my opinion. And I give them a B, give them a little props, because this is stuff they didn't have. They could have done nothing. They could have just sat pat with a C, but I think they made their team just a little bit better with those additions, even though none of them are huge difference makers. And then we got the Twins. Twins fans, super duper sorry that this has to happen. Like we said, you lost everyone on your team and you added tons and tons of prospects, many of which are interesting. But there was a couple that I think even this thing out a little bit more than you think, and I think that you should be excited about. They got Taj Bradley, James Outman, and Mick Abel. Those 3 guys have had success in the big leagues. And I think especially Mick Abel is a prize in this situation. I like Mick Abel a lot. If he stays healthy, I think that Mackey can do a lot with him. And I think Taj Bradley can make a big adjustment too. Maybe the Twins can get him to think about pitching a little bit differently than the Rays do. Usually that doesn't happen, but maybe. He's electric. He's got good stuff. And then Outman's just been chilling in AAA. Hasn't been able to hit enough, but he's lefty stick. He plays a good center fielder. He's good defensively. He could have value for them long term. So there is a little bit of big league talent there. It wasn't all prospects. That said, we're going to give him a C-, only because I love Abel. They are worse now, but they're closer. This is probably a D+, let's be honest. But I'm not going to give him an F. In terms of fans and taking care of your fans, you get a Z. You get a Z. You can't lose half your team because no one wants to watch that. In terms of just watchable product having an emotional connection to your team and the sale, all that stuff is being handled horribly. But in terms of the team getting way, 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 way worse, there are some pieces there that I think are going to be valuable to them immediately. Just I'm trying to give you a little drop of hope, okay? Now let's talk about the Chicago White Sox. They got a bunch of prospects and they got rid of Adrian Hauser, Austin Slater, 2 expiring contracts, so they get a little credit for there. But you notice there's no Luis Robert here, and that pisses me off. Trade him. Trade him so I can watch him play for a real team. D+. Why? It's a D. It's a D+. I'm changing my mind in real time. D+. At least they got something for a couple guys that are not going to be on this team next year. And that is a net positive at least. But they are still worse than they were. Moving on to the West. Let's move on to the West. In just a moment. Luis Robert, I think he's going to, this is one of those situations that as soon as he goes to another team, he's going to be really good. All right, let's move on. Sorry, my topic didn't get changed. All right. Let's talk about the Houston Astros real quick. Houston Astros, they added Carlos Correa, Jesus Sanchez, and Ramon Urias. I like these picks, especially with the way that their team has gotten hurt. Isaac Paredes is out for the year. He has a horrible hamstring strain, and it might bleed into next year. That's super worrying. They got rid of Mikulski, Gusto, and Twine Palmer. Unfortunately, I think every team should have a guy named Twine in it, but because he holds it together. Okay, sorry about that. So they get a B. They are better. They filled their spots. They got Carlos Correa back. He is the Houston legend. Everyone loves him. That was an exciting deadline for them, and I think their fan base is excited because they get a new guy, and then Jesus Sanchez, I think, could be a sneaky pickup for them. Seattle Mariners. Let's see how they did. Gino Suarez, Josh Naylor, and Caleb Ferguson. The things they needed at the deadline were a third baseman with pop, a first baseman with pop, and a lefty reliever. And they did it. Now, they had to move Tyler Locklear, who was another option at first, but they didn't feel comfortable putting him there this year, so that's probably telling enough. And then some of the prospects, which frankly I don't know a ton about, but they filled in their team exactly the way they needed to. That's exactly what they needed for this deadline, and so I give them an A. Jerry, I apologize for everything I said about you in the past. This was very savvy. You had 3 huge glaring pieces that you needed to get better, and you filled those pieces with arguably the best couple, at least 2 of the 3, the corner guys, are the best options available at the time. So, thumbs up for there. Moving on to the Rangers. They added Merrill Kelly, Danny Colum, Phil Maton, and Jose Ruiz, the follow baller, and they got rid of a few prospects, Cody Harrower and Dane Dunning, who had a good run there, but now has moved on. I love the add of the starter to Jacob deGrom and Nate Eovaldi at the front of their rotation. Danny Colum is a great left-handed option in the bullpen, and Phil Maton closed the game the other day and has looked good. These guys have track records, they have playoff experience, and they were good pickups. And the Texas Rangers also get an A. They filled their they filled their team up pretty good. They added some depth in the bullpen, which was one of their weaknesses. And we know that when they are right, they can score runs, and they have been scoring more runs lately. Last couple here before we take a quick break and go into the second half. Los Angeles Angels, Oswald Peraza, Andrew Chafin and Luis Garcia added. And for 3 prospects, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they got some big league talent. I don't know what Andrew Chafin and Luis Garcia were supposed to do. I don't really know if this is going for it or not. So I'll just say you're the same team, but you made some moves. You just gave away some prospects for things that aren't going to really matter this year probably. So I hope it works out. And finally, we have the redacted Athletics. They added Leo DeVries, number 3 prospect in baseball, some more prospects, and lost Mason Miller, JP Sears, and Kenya Huggins. Are they better now than they were in the big leagues? No. But could Leo DeVries be a big deal? Yes. And we all know about Leo DeVries. So of all prospects, I'm gonna factor him into this thing, and I'm gonna give him a C+. That they get some credit for going to get Leo DeVries, though this number long-term, if we're factoring in prospects, is probably going to go up quickly because I think that infield is much better with him. Now, I am going to stop it here. We're going to move on. I got to transfer over. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to use the restroom, and then we're going to do the National League over on Trevor May Baseball. If you're here on Foul Territory, come all over with us. I appreciate that. And Twitch, you hang out right there. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. All right, I will see you in just a couple minutes.